What's up, you draft nerds out there? My name is Draft Raw, and thank you for tuning in to In the Clutch. Thank you guys for watching. This is In the Clutch, and I'm your host, Draft Raw. And in this particular video, we're going to talk about the top interior offensive linemen in the 2021 draft. So without further ado, let's just get into it with the first name on the list. And I'm going to start with the guards, and that is Brady Christensen from BYU. Now with Brady, just looking at my notes here, he's not quick enough to be a tackle. He actually was playing left tackle at BYU. But he's kind of not strong enough to be a guard. So I kind of had to place him somewhere. And because of quickness is an essential trait to play the offensive tackle position, guard seemed like the best place to put him. Maybe he actually would carve out a career being a center if he actually worked that out. But in all, like I said, he's not strong enough to really be a guard. Now, maybe he could be a right tackle, and that's kind of a stretch because of the quickness is not there. But because he does have a little bit of quickness in his feet in terms of being able to shuffle, he won't be a left tackle, but maybe he can carve out a role as a right tackle. Also, he probably just will struggle within the NFL in general. He wasn't the best particular offensive lineman that I saw in this draft. There was a lot of things that were pretty bad, and it's kind of more off a name than anything. A lot of media scouts talk about him as being one of the top guys, and I just didn't really see it. There's certain things that being an offensive lineman you have to have, and when you're not quick enough and you're not strong enough, then what could you really be? Center is the one position that is probably the most unathletic position where you don't have to be particularly quick or you don't have to be particularly strong. But because he is a guy that does have a lot of starting experience and he's obviously been playing football for a long time, maybe that's the best role he can carve out. But right now, I have him listed as a guard because I think that if he starts there and he can't play that position, maybe move the center and see if he can play that position. But if he can't do that, he may just be a career backup or someone that's out of the league within the first two seasons. Anyway, going to the next guy, I was a little bit disappointed, and that is Wyatt Davis from Ohio State. Another player that media scouts have been, ramping up, saying that he's one of the better offensive guards within this draft class. He lunges in his blocks a lot, so there's not a lot of technique there. He easily gets beat with quickness, but he is strong, and that's the one thing that I could really attest to him is his play strength, being able to stonewall defensive tackles or linebackers or defensive ends that come his way. The thing is that once a guy is able to kind of get his hands off of them and use their quickness and speed to get around them, it's kind of it. And he's kind of a turnstile. Like he just keeps turning around because he's looking back at the quarterback getting sacked because he doesn't have the physical tools or the technique to be able to play the position right now. He's a guy that has some upside, and he could be solid within the league, but don't expect him to be one of the better offensive guards within the NFL. The next guy I got to talk about is Trey Smith from Tennessee. Another guy that it got to a point where I just stopped watching guards at one point while going through this process. The simple fact is that the top three consensus guards were tapes that I just did not like at all. It started to become a problem, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Trey Smith is another guy that's just a turnstile. He doesn't play with great technique. He lunges. He does all the things that you don't want an offensive guard to do, and it's, infuriating. Like, It's one of those things where you kind of wonder, are media scouts only pushing these guys up there just because they think they have the best upside? Or do they really think that these players are the best ones at their position? I got to question that. And that's why I make these videos, because I don't want people to just look at media scouts and look at what they have to say about a prospect, because a lot of times they're wrong and sometimes they have hidden agendas. I can tell you right now that these top three players, are not the guys that, if your team is looking for an offensive guard, they're not the guys to choose. But I can definitely tell you some guys that you will want to choose. And that is Ben Cleveland, offensive guard from the University of Georgia. Ben Cleveland is probably the best all-around guard in this draft class. And on top of that, he is the best bulldozing run blocker within this draft class. I don't think there's any other offensive lineman that blocks in the run the way he does. And then he has the size. He's a 6'6", 325-pound mammoth. He has long arms. He has big hands. He has all of the traits that you want within your offensive lineman. It was almost to a point where if you look at his actual measurements, you would think he's an offensive tackle. But the simple fact that he plays guard just says that, well, maybe he doesn't have the feet to play tackle. But he does have the strength, and he is quick enough, and definitely has, like I said, obviously the strength to play the position and really be able to hold his own. Some of the best tape that I've seen, and honestly, I think he personally should be the top offensive guard chosen within the draft. Next guy we're going to talk about is Quinn Miners. He played at Whitewater, Wisconsin, one of the lesser-known schools in college. He has a mean streak, and he has a lot of upside. The problem is that his technique is absolutely terrible. The reason why I like him, though, a little bit more than like guys like Trey Smith and Wyatt Davis and Brady Christensen is because the mean streak. The mean streak is there, and that's where the upside is there. The problem is that, like I said, the technique is not there. But this is something where you could take a guy like him, put him in your system, and wait about a year or two, and he could seriously be one of the best offensive guards within the NFL. He has that type of ability. The type of ability that it's not something that is born within everybody. Some guys are born being dogs, and some guys are just born just having athletic traits and whatever they have. But this guy, he's a dog, and he loves to play the game of football. You see it within every single snap that he had in college. The next guy we're going to talk about is Deontay Brown. I'm not going to go too deep into him. He was just kind of a big guy, and that was really it. It's a weird stat that he has, that he didn't give up a single sack in his entire college career. The problem is that, okay, he didn't give up a sack, but you've seen a lot of plays where he was on the ground. His feet got shuffled. He couldn't handle the quickness. Yeah, he could handle guys that could really bull rush and with strength and everything, but there was the guys that had the speed, the guys that had the quickness, he just couldn't handle at all. He was one of the worst offensive linemen when it came to that in particularly. And when you are getting to the NFL, if you can't handle quickness and speed at the interior position, I don't know what to do with you. A lot of Alabama offensive linemen over the years, they've been highly projected and then come into the NFL and kind of not be the guy that you thought they would be. And hopefully that's not him. I don't prey on any of these prospects being bust and not being able to provide for their family and everything because maybe they can't handle the game of football. I don't prey on that. I hope that a lot of these prospects are able to play the game that they love and be able to make the money that they can make and be able to support their family. But some guys just don't have the ability to be able to play the position or any of the positions at the highest level. And hopefully he can turn that around. But he's one of those guys that I worry about because he may not be able to do it. The next player that we're going to talk on the list is actually we're going to talk about two guys, and that's the two offensive guards from Notre Dame. One guy is Tommy Creamer. The other guy is Aaron Banks. Tommy Creamer uses his hands well. He's solid in everything except blocking in space. He doesn't have the athleticism in blocking space. He's a little bit lost as well, but also to be able to get to the linebackers or the defensive backs that he has to block for his running backs to be able to get big yardage, he's not that great at doing that. But when it comes to inline blocking, he uses his hands well, and that technique is able to make him one of the better offensive guards within this draft class. The next guy after that, Aaron Banks, who played the left guard of Notre Dame, he shows the athleticism to block in space. And it's kind of weird because it's literally the opposite of Tommy. He also showed a mean streak, but like I said, he has the upside, but the inconsistency with his technique is very alarming. This is a guy just like Quinn Miners that you could seriously, you bring in because of the athleticism, because of the mean streak, because of the things that you want in an offensive lineman, and you just teach him technique. You just teach him how to be a better offensive lineman, and he's going to be one of the better offensive linemen within this draft class. But he has to get better at the technique to be able to do that. And hopefully he's another guy that could really turn it around and be able, like I said, provide for his family. So next we're going to go into the centers of this draft class. And I can just tell you right now, the top two guys, Creed Humphrey and Landon Dickerson, they're on their own. They're on their own stratosphere. They're the top two guys, the best centers in this draft class. Creed Humphrey has started since he was a freshman and has been considered a consensus every year in college, one of the best centers in college. And then with Landon Dickerson, it's the same thing. Consensusly, has been considered the best center. Both these guys are fighting neck and neck. I literally can't tell you who's better than the other. I can definitely say this. I do think Creed Humphrey may actually get drafted ahead of him because Landon is dealing with the ACL tear that he had literally during the last game of the college season. He tore his ACL. So he would have to, kind of get acclimated. He won't be able to be out there on the field to be able to improve on his technique and really learn the NFL game and NFL speed. But he's a guy that playing at Alabama, you're playing against some of the better defenses within college. It shouldn't be too hard for him, but there is a learning curve that he will have to go through. And some teams are not willing to pull the trigger on that in the first round. But I definitely think both these guys, even Creed Humphrey, who may not go in the first round, I think both these guys will go in the second round and will be a stalwart for an offensive line for any team that chooses them. Next center we're going to talk on this list is Josh Myers, Ohio State center. Solid strength, great technique and bend, being able to drop his hips and bend his knees to be able to anchor. Super athletic, one of the most athletic centers I've seen in this draft class, and he's really, really good at blocking in space. And usually the guys that block in space well are very, very athletic. So those always go hand in hand. But the way he moves with energy and smoothness at the same time. It's kind of weird to explain, but he constantly keeps his feet moving, so it's a lot of energy moving, but it's smooth and it doesn't look choppy and it doesn't look like he's trying too hard. He looks so natural at the position that he could honestly put himself in that stratosphere with both Creed Humphrey and Landon Dickerson of being the the top center within this draft. Some of the best tape I watched from the centers of this draft. And last but not least, the last center I want to talk about is Drake Jackson from Kentucky. He's short, so that's kind of a bad thing, but it's a good thing when you're a center because it creates leverage. Being the lowest man creates the best leverage, obviously, right? He fights in every single play. Every block that he has, he keeps fighting. Even if he loses, he keeps going and he keeps on trying to block because he's trying to protect his quarterback. And that's something that you really, really like about a player that just keeps going and he's not going to stop. He's smart. He knows who, what, and where to block. It seems like he had the Kentucky offense. He had that offensive play so down. Like he knew every play. He just had it down that he knew where he wanted to block, who he wanted to block, and what he was going to do when he blocked that particular defensive player. It's honestly, out of a lot of these centers that I watched, these four guys were just ahead of just all of them. I didn't see a lot of these centers. Some of these centers didn't have the greatest snaps. Some of these centers didn't handle power well. Some of these centers didn't handle quickness well. But all of these guys kind of handled it the best that they could. And honestly, I think a lot of these centers could probably even play the guard position. They don't even have to be centers. That's how good these guys are, is that even though the center position would be considered the most unathletic position on the football field or basically just on the offensive line, these guys have the athleticism to be able to play other positions on the offensive line. And the last thing about Drake Jackson, when I talked about snaps, Drake Jackson had the perfect snap on every play. I've never seen a player snap the ball so perfectly every single play. It was kind of weird that I noticed that because I don't really look for that. But it kind of made me look back at some of the other centers in this draft just to see how perfect are the snaps. Do the snaps really come back straight to the quarterback, or are they off to the side, to the right, to the left? Are they low? This guy, every single snap was right in the quarterback's belly. And honestly, it's some of the best snapping I've ever seen. Anyway, that was the last guy on the list. I thank you guys for watching. Thank you once again for tuning in to In the Clutch. Once again, my name is Draft Raw, and if you want to see more videos from me, then you can subscribe to my YouTube channel at Draft Raw. And if you want to hear more from me, then you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at the same name, Draft Raw. Once again, thank you. I'll see you next time.